So you want to last 3 times longer in bed this year. Yeah, like who doesn't? That's an amazing experience to have control over your ejaculation. I last 10 times longer than I used to. I used to last less than a minute. So, I mean, it varies, of course, but it sucked so much to be trapped in a body that couldn't control when it was going to come. It's so annoying. And so I'm going to go over some things that you're typically not going to see on Reddit or even if you ask your AI. That's because most information, it's trying to solve the problem at the level or the region of which it's created. It's like, oh, it's coming out of my penis. There's the pelvic floor. It must be pelvic floor tension. Let me work with that part of the body. Or let me think about it chemically, the serotonin aspect. Let me take SSRIs. But it's the holistic nervous system component that is by far the most important. And that's actually what changes you long term so that you don't just keep having to fight for it. Like if I keep doing these exercises or taking these pills or doing this certain routine, I'll keep it around. There's no keeping it around. Once you remold your nervous system, it has been remolded. The reactive patterning that was developed at some point in your childhood, adolescence, and your adulthood that has created this pattern in your brain with your penis through your nervous system needs to be changed. So I'm going to go over 4 R's. That's going to be relax, reveal, release, and reprogram. First is relax. That's relax your nervous system. It's more of regulating your nervous system. But most guys that I work with, I've worked with over 1,000 men with pelvic floor issues, ejaculatory issues, ED, various things like that. We're typically in a prolonged state of fight, flight, or freeze. So this sympathetic nervous system state. And it's become their new normal. This has to do with a lot of things, like personality tendencies of being perfectionistic, being overly ambitious, or constantly focused on the future, always thinking, planning, analyzing, being so in your head and not in your heart, not in your body, not really able to slow down and calm down and just be here. I mean, things like repressed emotions, that puts you in a survival state, and past traumas and difficult experiences. There are a lot of things that lead to this, but nonetheless, that's where we start, is relaxing, regulating your nervous system. You can do this in a lot of different ways, but just because it's becoming important to you and it's in your purview, it's like, okay, I want to be aware of things like my heart rate. Now you don't have to measure your heart rate, but my heart rate, right? Your brainwave state, your heart wave state your heart rate state is going to basically show you how regulated you are to a degree. And so doing things like breath work, meditation, yoga, other kinds of somatic practices. It's not always just slowing down, calming down, doing nothing. Sometimes it's actually moving and shaking and yelling and dancing. So it's actually this flexibility, but you're not living your whole life about doing and fixing and data and analytics and constant progress of like, I have to gain this much weight, I have to make this much money, I have to solve this problem in this way. We want to be more holistic and regulated. So the nervous system component is really big. This is going to look like a different you, a different life, honestly. So if you think about changing who you're being in this entire year and going slower and listening to your body's signals and creating space instead of thinking that doing more faster, go, next thing, that translates into your sexual experience. I see the guys who are in that state of like constant motion and thinking and the mind can't slow down or stop. That also shows up in their body sexually. I mean, I don't meet guys who are just surfing and chilling out and taking it easy and just like living, playing their guitar, hanging out all the time, having premature ejaculation. That's because someone who has more of a grounded, balanced nature, more embodied nature, is able to stay in the rhythm of their body and not get into the mind too much. So relaxing, regulating the nervous system is where we start though. So instead of like, I gotta fix my personality, I've gotta, start with working with the body in that way. And so we move into reveal. Revealing is very helpful though, and that's recognizing, well, what are those patterns? Like why is my body reacting this way? Why is it ejaculating so fast? Now look, part of it can be porn use, masturbating to porn, developing that patterning, that neural circuitry over many years. Yes, That also can be part of it. Part of it, it can be a big part of it typically, is the feeling of needing to be really good at sex and how important it is that you're good at sex and the way you'll be judged or criticized or seen socially, or fear of loss in a relationship, fear of the size of your penis, of making sounds, of being expressive. And this often shows up everywhere in your life, not just in sex. Maybe being afraid to speak up and use your voice and dance and take up space, and you're being overly conscientious and always putting other people in front of you and before you, and not really letting yourself have an embodied experience as a human being, as a masculine male in this life. So revealing is just noticing, like, where are those edges, those barriers, where do you not feel free in your life? It's not just sexually, because someone will be like, well, I don't feel free in sex because I ejaculate in 30 seconds. Well, I'm aware of that. Where else though? Where else? Maybe in your relationship with your partner, there are things you'd like to ask for, or you're like, I want to ask for something, I want something, but I'm afraid to because I don't want to rock the boat. I fear confrontation. These are all patterns for you to work with that are creating a background tension, dysregulating the nervous system. By the way, I created a program called Vigor. It's an 8-week program for premature ejaculation and ED. There are a lot of tools to literally help you do these things. It's an option there for you. So the next thing we'll go into is release. And releasing has to do, yes, with, actually releasing trauma and the tension in the pelvic floor and the tension in the body, emotions, a lot of those factors, as well as releasing an old way of being, an old way of doing. So it's actually changing your behaviors. Similar to what I just said. So like once you reveal fears that you have, it's like, I have a fear of heights, just as an example. And you're like, I have identified that. I don't even like going up in an elevator or walking on a balcony or something like that. You don't start the next day by skydiving. But because you have recognized it, you can do gradual exposure. And that graded exposure with safety and presence and feeling the sensation of fear, and you're embracing what you've been avoiding. You're actually walking more towards the darkness in order to see more light. Paradoxical, but it's just how it works. And so when you notice your fears, when you notice those personality tendencies, when you notice that trauma, you start to do something about it and actually live differently. This requires more change, and it's harder to do than just doing Kegels or reverse Kegels 10 times every morning and evening and doing the no-fap perfectly for 3 months. Those things are easier because they seem to be mechanical and physical, and you can control them and you can put them in your app or on your checklist. What I'm talking about is softer. What I'm talking about is more subtle, that literally makes the difference. It's more important because it's underlying, it's underpinning why your nervous system is in a certain state and it has an ejaculatory reflex that isn't being relaxed ultimately. And so you start to release and change your behaviors and your patterns. And then we move on to the last thing. The last thing is what you want to, like, what about the practices? What do I actually do in partnered sex? What do I actually do when I feel like I'm about to come? Those are also important. And so things like conscious masturbation, penis root masturbation, or other forms where you're self-pleasuring, you're decoupling masturbation and sex from ejaculation. So it's not every time I touch myself, I always ejaculate. That's what most men around the whole world have coupled, honestly. And so we decouple that, and it's about pleasure, presence, and connection, not just about the O at the end for yourself or your partner. Typically, there's more pressure on you doing it for your partner. And so a new kind of conscious masturbation practice. In the Vigor program, we have solo sexual practices with breath and sound and various things in there that are really good for this. Porn use, like not watching porn anymore, I highly recommend. I don't think there's any reason to do that. If you actually want to experience sexual connection with another human being, it's detrimental for you doing that more successfully. We look at things like slowing down the breath even when you're with a partner, and getting more adept at feeling sensation and arousal and noticing your arousal and shifting out of it, shifting away from it with the big draw and other kinds of practices. And then you can even do tantric couple practices that allow you to experience intimacy and pleasure and connection without always ejaculating, without thinking it's all about that penetration. It's all about bringing my partner to an orgasm, or if I don't, I'm a failure. It's decoupling the thought of, I have to be this certain way and do this thing for my partner, or I suck, or I'm not a man. Because when you take all the pressure off, and yes, we're doing some of these practices and where our nervous system is just more relaxed and chill, your body performs differently. It's like if you think about the best sex you've ever had in your life, I imagine maybe you're on vacation, maybe you're in like a different location than you normally are, or a different situation, and there was novelty, there was freshness, you were feeling settled and grounded and also excited. And so that allows for this primal, instinctual connection to take place between two people. And so, look, if you need more help, like I said, the Vigor 8-week program basically takes you through the whole thing over 8 weeks, regulating your nervous system, revealing what's even beneath it, releasing and making changes in your life, and then also all the practices to bring to the table to shift your body and with your partner. I'd love to have you in the program. If you want some support, let me know if this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions, I'll see you next time.